phone jack adapter, a USB-C cable for charging, and the most powerful charger you can possibly get on a commercial smartphone. And here's the Mi 10 Ultra. Ooh, also, alongside the phone, they've dropped some pretty high-grade accessories with it. There's the official case, which feels like a nice quality carbon fiber material. There's a car charger, which I wouldn't normally care about, but this tiny thing can deliver a total of 100 watts of power. And then the wireless charger, to take advantage of the frankly ludicrous wireless charging speed of this phone. It's not cheap, but this feels super premium. And then, finally, in a slightly different direction, a wireless charging pad, which actually just has one charging coil, but here's the kicker. It moves to locate right underneath your phone, wherever you put it on the pad. Very cool concept. In practice, it's kind of loud and a little bit rattly. So, to really deserve the title of Ultra, I feel like a phone needs to have a spec sheet that makes you gulp. And this has that. In fact, in some ways, this is the most impressive spec sheet on a phone ever. A 6.67-inch 120Hz 10-bit colored display, a quad camera setup with dual 8K video and 120 times zoom. And to make this a little sweeter, this camera system has been ranked by DxOMark as the best in the world. A 4500 mAh battery paired with Qualcomm's new Quick Charge 5 tech, which gives it 120 watt charging. It has 50 watt wireless charging, and for some perspective on that figure, that is twice as powerful as the Galaxy Note 20 Ultra's wired charging. And finally, a Snapdragon 865 chip, up to 16 gigs of the fastest LPDDR5 RAM, 512 gigs of the fastest UFS 3.1 storage, all cooled with liquid cooling, 6 stacks of graphite and graphene. It also happens to be the highest scoring phone on Antutu benchmark in the world, with 660,000 points. Okay, I'm interested. So this is an ultra impressive spec sheet, it's an ultra expensive phone, but wait a second, it starts at $760. Excuse me? I had to double check, I had to triple check, and yeah, sure enough, the converted Chinese price of this phone is $760. So even if for argument's sake we say $800, it has basically flipped the entire convention of an Ultra phone on its head. It costs less than Samsung's base normal Galaxy S20. So what's the catch? Oh, and if you're enjoying this video, by the way, a sub to the channel would be tremendous. Well, it doesn't look like they've cheaped out on the design. Although it has taken a very different direction to Samsung and Huawei's offerings, it does look just as excessive and ultra. And the camera module, while I don't think it's the prettiest, does look badass. It does look like it means business. But I will say this, I didn't quite realize how big the cameras would be until I actually picked the phone up for myself. You know, like the Galaxy Note 20 Ultra, that phone has a huge camera bump, but even that sits in the top third of the phone. This comes down almost halfway, which means that whatever hand I'm holding it in, fingers touch it a lot, especially if you're gaming. It's kind of a shame because the shape of the phone is super comfortable. It would have really benefited from a matte finish and cameras that perhaps go horizontally across. Although using a case does help quite a lot with both of these issues. And actually, just using this day to day, just trying to find the hidden catch that must be there somewhere, I really struggled. It loads games and apps quicker than I think any Android I've ever used, and I've been using this as my COD mobile machine, because it can play the game at 60 frames per second on the highest possible settings. The haptics when you're typing are pretty good, its dual speaker setup is very good, but the one thing that I've been marveling at, which I wasn't expecting to be marveling at, is the software. It's running Xiaomi's MIUI 12, and I think the best way to describe it would be with the word artistic. It's gone down a very different path to Google's stock Pixel software, but I was surprised how much I liked it. I like the new fonts, the organization of the settings menu, and how almost every action you do has a corresponding animation and haptic feedback. You leave an app, you see its icon change. You uninstall something and watch it explode, sending a shockwave through the rest of your apps. They've got these new wallpapers, they call them super wallpapers, and even though they do take up something ridiculous like 90 megabytes of file, they really are quite special. For starters, flicking between your screens, you'll see the background rotate. Okay, but then pop your phone into standby and it'll zoom all the way out of this rocky planet face to show you a global view. And without you even realizing what's happened, in that process it has seamlessly transitioned to its power-saving always-on display. And the whole thing even follows day and night cycles. Plus, I think Xiaomi have been really clever with the fingerprint scanner that sits just under. It's not the fastest, but when you place your finger on it, you feel like a soft vibration that then ramps up in intensity. When you first put your finger on, there's like a gentle whir, and then that slowly builds until it pops when you unlock the phone. In a weird kind of way, it feels like you're powering up your very own supercar. and because of the way they've done it, you don't notice the time taken as much. The main obvious downside is that there's just heaps of bloatware here, but you can remove almost all of it. But anyways, you're probably wondering, this is the highest rated camera in the world. So how good is it actually? We've got 4 cameras, starting with the ultra-wide. And fun fact, this is the widest camera I've ever used, with a 128-degree field of view compared to 120 on Samsung's. And as well as being more dramatic, it's also more detailed. The only caveat being that 20% of the time when I take it out and was ready to shoot something, I would find out that it's super blurry because I'd accidentally covered it in fingerprints. We've then got the main camera, which is actually a custom-engineered 48-megapixel sensor. Credit where due, that number isn't doing it much justice. We actually see a lot of phones, even mid-range phones, with 48-megapixel sensors, but the important takeaway is that most of those are very small, whereas the one on this phone is actually larger than the 108-megapixel main camera of the Note 20 Ultra. It shows. Photos are exceptional. Actually very reminiscent of the Huawei P40 Pro camera, aka my favourite phone camera of the year so far. The colours are spot on, more natural than Xiaomi, and the photos are just very detailed with almost zero noise. Oh yeah, and the dynamic range is crazy good, even more noticeable if you drop it side by side with the Galaxy S20 Ultra. I would use the Note 20 Ultra, but technically we're not allowed to share camera samples from that phone till the 18th, so S20 Ultra it is. Now, the one Achilles heel of this camera is that just as Samsung fixes its year-long focusing issues by introducing laser autofocus on its Note, Xiaomi starts the trend again. It's sometimes completely fine with people and big objects, but try to focus on anything fine, like small flowers, and it just can't do it, no matter